Stepmother, I'm hungry too. Her voice was small, pleading. Wash the plates first. Then we'll see. There was never a then. She knew that. But she still hoped, every single time. Fifi spooned more jollof onto her plate, laughing at her phone, not even looking up. Mama, let me have her share. She's not really eating anyway. Take it. She doesn't need it like you do. She turned to the sink so no one would see the tears sliding down her face. 12 years old, and she already knew her place in that house. Years later, her admission letter arrived. She held it to her chest, crying, laughing, finally something good. Then her stepmother tore it in half in front of her. You'll stay back this year. Fifi is going in your place. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. She just cried herself to sleep that night, and the night after, and the night after that. Then came the men. One who loved her. Gone. Another. Gone. A third. Gone. Each time, she cried alone, wondering what was so wrong with her. But the fourth man, the quiet one, the one everybody called poor, her stepmother didn't even look at him twice. That would be the biggest mistake of her life. Before we go further, let me just say hello to everyone joining me today. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I read every single one and it makes my day. If you're new here, welcome. This is AfricanFolktaleBySusan, and I tell stories like this every week, stories about family, betrayal, and the justice that always finds its way back. If you want to be here for the next one, subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss it. Alright, let's get back to Kemi's story. Kemi was 12 when her mother died. 6 months later, her father brought Vivian into the house, and Vivian brought Fifi. This is your new mother, her father said, standing stiffly in the living room. And your new sister. I expect you to treat them with respect. Kemi nodded. She didn't know yet what that word, respect, would come to cost her. The first year was quiet cruelty. Small things. Vivian would cook 2 different meals, one for Fifi with meat, and one for Kemi with nothing but plain rice. When Kemi complained to her father, he brushed her off. Vivian is trying her best. Stop stressing the woman. But Papa, she gave Fifi 3 pieces of chicken and gave me none. Kemi, enough. You are becoming stubborn. That was the pattern. Every time Kemi spoke, her father heard defiance. Every time Vivian smiled, he saw kindness. It didn't matter what actually happened in that house when he wasn't home. By the time Kemi turned 15, she was doing all the housework. Cooking, cleaning, washing everyone's clothes, including Fifi's, while Fifi sat in front of the television, painting her nails. Kemi, my uniform, Fifi called out one morning. It's not ironed yet. I have to prepare for school too, Fifi. Mama. Fifi shouted immediately. Kemi is being rude to me again. Vivian appeared in the doorway, arms folded. Is this how you want to start your day? She took one look at the letter, and her face changed instantly. What is this? My admission letter, Ma. I got into University of Lagos. Vivian's jaw tightened. She turned to her husband. And Fifi? What happened with Fifi's result? The room went silent. Everyone already knew the answer. Fifi had failed the entrance exam. Again. Kemi worked hard for this, her father started to say, but Vivian cut him off. So it's fine that my daughter sits at home while this one goes off to enjoy herself in university. Vivian, that's not what I... No, Vivian's voice dropped, cold and final. Kemi will stay back this year. Fifi will go in her place. Kemi felt the floor tilt beneath her. Ma, this is my admission. My name is on that letter. Names can be changed. Universities do it all the time for family reasons. Vivian snatched the letter out of her husband's hands. You will wait 1 year, Kemi. 1 year will not kill you. Papa, please. Kemi turned to her father, eyes already filling with tears. Please, say something. Her father looked away. Just wait 1 year, Kemi. It's not the end of the world. That night, Kemi didn't cry loudly. She had learned not to. She sat on her bedroom floor and let the tears fall silently, the way she'd been crying since she was 12 years old, quiet enough that no one in that house would hear her and call it drama. The following week, Fifi resumed at the University of Lagos, using documents that miraculously carried Kemi's admission number. She came home every holiday with new clothes, new phones, gifts from her father's money. You should see the hostel, Kemi, Fifi said one afternoon, admiring a new bag. It's so nice there. You'll enjoy it when it's finally your turn. Kemi said nothing. She had learned that silence hurt less than the alternative. She spent that year working as a shop attendant, saving every naira she could, determined that when her own admission finally came, she would not depend on this family for anything. And when it did come, a full year later, she left that house with 2 bags and a heart full of scars nobody could see. She thought the worst was behind her. She had no idea it was only the beginning. University life was hard for Kemi, but it was hers. She stayed in a room with 3 other girls, all 4 of them sharing one small table, one gas cooker, and one dream, survival. She worked as a waitress on weekends, sold recharge cards between classes, and still somehow made it to every lecture. Meanwhile, Fifi called home constantly, always asking for more money. Papa, my hostel fee increased again, Fifi said one evening on the phone, Kemi seated across the room pretending not to listen. And I need money for a new laptop. Everyone in my class has one. Kemi's father sent the money without a single question. He never asked Kemi if she needed anything. He assumed, wrongly, that Vivian was sending her something too. Vivian never sent her a single naira. By her 2nd year, Kemi had built a small reputation for herself. She was smart, respectful, and known for helping other students with their assignments in exchange for a little money. One of those students introduced her to his cousin, Tebena. Tebena was different from anyone Kemi had ever met. He was studying law, came from a comfortable family, but never once acted like it. You're always working, Tebena said to her one afternoon, watching her arrange textbooks for another student. Don't you ever rest? Rest is a luxury I can't afford, Kemi said, not looking up. Let me help you then. I don't need help. I didn't say you needed it. I said let me. That was how it started. Slowly. Carefully. Tebena would buy her lunch, walk her to lectures, wait outside her hostel just to see her for 5 minutes. For the first time in her life, someone was giving to her without expecting something painful in return. I want you to meet my family, Tebena told her one weekend, holding her hand across a small restaurant table. I've told my mother about you already. Tebena, my family situation is complicated. I know. You've told me enough. That doesn't change anything for me. Kemi smiled, but inside, fear crept in. She knew what happened whenever something good entered her life. She just didn't know it would happen so fast. It happened during her final year, when Tebena invited her home for the very first time to formally meet his mother. Kemi mentioned it casually to her father over the phone, not realizing Vivian was listening on speaker. Tebena, the law student? Vivian asked, stepping closer to the phone. The one whose family owns that estate in Lekki. Yes, Ma, Kemi answered carefully. Interesting, Vivian said, and something in her tone made Kemi's stomach tighten. 3 weeks later, Tebena stopped answering her calls. Kemi went to his hostel, confused, desperate. His roommate opened the door, avoiding her eyes. He said to tell you he's busy. Busy? For 3 weeks. Kemi, I think you should just let it go. She didn't let it go. Not until she saw Tebena at the school cafeteria one afternoon, seated with Fifi, laughing over a plate of rice. Kemi's legs stopped moving. Her chest went tight. Tebena. He looked up, guilt written all over his face, but Fifi answered first. Oh, Kemi. We didn't see you there. What is this? Kemi's voice cracked. Tebena, what is going on? Tebena stood up slowly, unable to meet her eyes. Kemi, I think we should talk somewhere else. No. Talk to me here. Now. He sighed. Your stepmother came to see me. She told me things about your family, about you, things that made me worried about what kind of life I would be marrying into. What things? Kemi's voice was shaking now. She said you were secretly still depending on your father's money behind my back. That you lied about supporting yourself. She said you couldn't be trusted. That's not true, Tebena. You know that's not true. I don't know what's true anymore, Kemi. Fifi placed a hand gently on his arm, and Kemi watched, frozen, as Tebena allowed it to stay there. She walked away from that cafeteria without another word. That night, she called her father, sobbing. Papa, Vivian went to Tebena and lied about me. She destroyed my relationship. Kemi, don't make wild accusations, her father said, tired, dismissive. Vivian would never do something like that. She did, Papa. Ask her yourself. There was a pause, and then Kemi heard Vivian's voice in the background, smooth and confident. Kemi is upset because the boy left her. Now she wants to blame me for her own failed relationship. You see, her father said, returning to the phone. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Stop putting your problems on other people. Kemi hung up without responding. There was nothing left to say to a man who would always choose comfort over truth. Graduation came a few months later, quiet and lonely. Kemi walked across the stage with nobody from her family in the audience, only a few friends clapping from the crowd. She got a job almost immediately after, working as a junior accountant in a small firm in Lagos. It wasn't glamorous, but it was hers, and entirely through her own effort. Fifi, despite years in university, could not secure a single job. Interview after interview came back empty. Maybe you're not trying hard enough, Vivian told her daughter one evening, frustration clear in her voice. I am trying, Mama. Nobody is calling me back. Meanwhile, Kemi already has a job. Vivian's eyes darkened. That girl has always had something working in her favor. It's not fair. Kemi overheard this conversation from the hallway, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself a small, private smile. She had worked for everything she had. There was nothing unfair about that. But Vivian's frustration didn't stay quiet for long. A year later, Kemi met another man, Chidi, an engineer working on a construction project near her office. He was calm, steady, uninterested in drama or attention. He noticed her sitting alone during her lunch breaks and slowly began joining her. You always eat alone, Chidi said one afternoon. I like the quiet. Can I share the quiet with you sometimes? Kemi laughed for the first time in a long while. I suppose you can. Their relationship grew slowly, carefully, much like the one before. Chidi eventually asked to meet her family, and against her better judgment, hoping things might finally be different, Kemi agreed. It was a mistake she would regret almost immediately. Vivian was polished and warm that day, offering Chidi drinks, complimenting his career, asking thoughtful questions about his family background. Kemi watched, uneasy, remembering exactly how this same warmth had once destroyed her before. You have such a lovely home, Chidi said to Vivian as he left that evening. Thank you, my son. You're welcome here anytime. Kemi should have known better. She should have listened to the warning bells ringing loudly in her chest. 2 weeks later, Chidi grew distant. Calls became shorter. Visits stopped entirely. Chidi, did I do something wrong? No, Kemi, it's just, I've been busy. You've been busy for 2 weeks straight. He sighed heavily through the phone. Your stepmother called me, Kemi. Her heart sank instantly. What did she say? She said you have a history of using men to escape your family responsibilities. She said your ex left because you were controlling and manipulative. She showed me messages, Kemi, screenshots of conversations. Those were fake, Chidi. I never said those things. I don't know what to believe anymore. A month later, Kemi saw the wedding invitation. Chidi and Fifi. She sat alone in her small apartment that night, staring at the golden lettering on the card, wondering how many more times her stepmother would destroy her happiness and hand it, wrapped neatly, to her stepsister instead. She didn't cry that night. She was far too tired for tears. Instead, she made a quiet decision. Whatever came next, whoever entered her life next, she would protect it fiercely. She would not let this family take one more thing from her. She had no idea a third man was already waiting in her future, and neither did she know how much worse things were about to become before they finally got better. Kemi buried herself in work after Chidi's wedding invitation arrived. She threw herself into every project at the accounting firm, arriving early, leaving late, anything to keep her mind away from the egg sitting quietly in her chest. Her hard work paid off. Within 2 years, she was promoted to senior accountant, one of the youngest in the firm's history. She moved into a slightly bigger apartment, bought her first car, a small but reliable Toyota she was immensely proud of. Vivian heard about the promotion through a mutual family friend and could not hide her irritation. How is it that this girl keeps rising? Vivian muttered to her husband one evening. Meanwhile, Fifi is struggling in her marriage, and nobody even asks about her. Fifi chose the marriage herself, Kemi's father replied carefully. Chidi has always had a temper. Everyone saw it except her. Vivian shot him a sharp look, and he quickly fell silent. Even he had learned which topics were safe to speak on. Because the truth, hidden carefully behind Vivian's smiles at family gatherings, was that Fifi's marriage had turned into something dark. Chidi's calm exterior had hidden a controlling, explosive temper that surfaced almost immediately after the wedding. Fifi called her mother crying more nights than anyone in that house wanted to admit. He grabbed my arm again, Mama. He said I embarrassed him in front of his colleagues. Just be patient with him, Fifi. Marriage takes work. I'm scared, Mama. Vivian never mentioned these calls to anyone outside the house. Appearances mattered more than her daughter's safety, and everyone around her had learned to keep their observations to themselves. Kemi knew nothing of this. She had cut most emotional ties to that house, visiting only during major holidays, speaking only when necessary. She had built walls, thick and steady, protecting whatever pieces of her heart remained intact. It was during this quiet period that she met Bode. Bode owned a logistics company, confident, well-spoken, the kind of man who filled a room simply by walking into it. He met Kemi at a business conference where she'd been sent to represent her firm's accounts department. You're the only person in this entire hall who looks like they'd rather be somewhere else, Bode said, settling into the empty seat beside her during a break. Kemi allowed herself a small laugh. Is it that obvious? Painfully. They talked for nearly an hour that day, and something about Bode's easy confidence pulled Kemi out of the emotional shell she'd built over the years. He called her the next morning, and the morning after that, and slowly, carefully, Kemi allowed herself to hope again, even as fear whispered warnings in the back of her mind. I need to tell you something about my family, she said to him one evening, months into their relationship. Things aren't simple with them. Family is never simple, Bode replied, taking her hand. But whatever it is, it doesn't scare me. Kemi wanted desperately to believe him. Before we continue, I just want to check in with you. If you're still here, drop a number in the comments, 1, 2, 3, however many times you felt let down by someone who was supposed to protect you. I read every comment, and honestly, some of your stories in the comment section break my heart more than the ones I write. If nobody has told you today, you deserve people who choose you and protect you, not people who compete with you. If this story has your heart racing already, make sure you're subscribed, because what happens with Bode is only the beginning of what's coming. Alright, let's continue. Bode eventually asked to meet her family, the same request that had unraveled her twice before. This time, Kemi hesitated for weeks. Maybe we should wait, she told him. Maybe we don't need to rush this. Kemi, I've met your friends, your colleagues, everyone except the people who raised you. Are you ashamed of me? No, it's not that. Then what is it? She couldn't explain the fear sitting heavy in her chest, the years of watching every good thing in her life quietly destroyed by one woman's jealousy. So eventually, against every instinct screaming inside her, she agreed. The visit went exactly as it had before. Vivian was radiant, warm, generous with her compliments. She asked about Bode's business with genuine-sounding curiosity, laughed at his jokes, insisted he take a plate of food home with him. Your family seems lovely, Bode told Kemi afterward, driving her back to her apartment. Kemi said nothing, her stomach twisted into knots she couldn't quite explain. 3 weeks later, Bode began cancelling their dates. Something came up at work, he'd say, "Oh, I'm just really tired tonight, Kemi." The excuses piled up until finally, Kemi arrived unannounced at his office, unable to bear the uncertainty any longer. His secretary looked uncomfortable. "He's in a meeting, Ma. I'll wait." She waited nearly 2 hours before Bode finally emerged, and the moment he saw her, his expression confirmed everything she already feared. "Kemi, we need to talk." "I know that face, Bode. Just tell me." He sighed, running a hand over his face. "Your stepmother came to see me last week." Kemi's chest tightened, but she said nothing, waiting. "She showed me pictures, Kemi. Pictures of you with another man, recent ones, timestamps from just last month. She said you'd been seeing someone else this entire time. Those pictures are fake, Bode. I don't know how she got them, but they are fake. They looked real to me. Because she paid someone to make them look real. Bode, please, you have to believe me." He was quiet for a long moment, and in that silence, Kemi already knew she had lost him. "I need time to think, Kemi." He never called again. 6 months later, Bode married Fifi in a lavish ceremony that Vivian bragged about to anyone who would listen. Kemi wasn't invited, though she had every detail through relatives eager to remind her of everything she'd lost. What nobody could have predicted was how quickly that marriage would sour. Bode's charm, it turned out, masked a controlling nature far worse than Chidi's had been. Within a year, Fifi was trapped in a home where her every movement was monitored, her phone checked nightly, her friendships slowly severed one by one. "He doesn't let me visit anyone anymore, Mama," Fifi confided one evening, voice trembling. "He controls everything, my money, my time, even what I wear." Vivian, still unwilling to admit any fault in her own scheming, simply patted her daughter's hand. "Every marriage has its difficulties, my dear. You'll manage." Kemi, meanwhile, sat with the third heartbreak of her life, the third good thing torn violently from her hands. She stopped attending family functions altogether after Bode's wedding, unable to stomach watching her stepmother celebrate stolen happiness. She threw herself deeper into her career, eventually leaving the accounting firm to start her own small consultancy business, something entirely hers, something Vivian couldn't touch or manipulate or steal. For nearly 2 years, Kemi didn't date anyone. Friends encouraged her to try again, but she'd built a wall too thick to climb, convinced that anyone she loved would eventually be taken from her, one way or another. Then, quite by accident, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon at a small market where she went to buy fabric for a new office uniform, she met a man selling second-hand clothes from a modest wooden stall. He was quiet, unassuming, dressed simply in a faded shirt and worn sandals. His name was Daniel. Neither of them knew, in that small, unremarkable moment, that everything Kemi had suffered until now was about to make sense, and that everything Vivian had built through years of manipulation was about to collapse in ways she never could have imagined. Daniel's stall sat at the corner of the market, quiet, tidy, nothing like the loud vendors shouting for customers around him. Kemi almost walked past it, but something about his calm demeanor made her pause. "Good afternoon," he said, not pushing, not desperate for a sale. "Looking for something particular?" "Fabric. For a work uniform. I have a few here that might suit you." He pulled out 3 options, laid them gently on the table. "This one holds its color well. Doesn't fade after washing." Kemi picked it up, studying it. "You know fabric well for someone selling second-hand clothes." He smiled, a small, humble smile. "I pay attention to things. That's all." She bought the fabric, and somehow, without either of them planning it, she found herself back at his store the following week. Then the week after that. Conversations grew longer. Daniel never asked for anything, never pushed, never made her feel like she owed him her time. "You're different," Kemi told him one afternoon, sitting on an old wooden bench beside his store. "Different how?" "You don't try too hard. Everyone I've ever dated tried too hard, at first." Daniel shrugged. "I don't believe in performing for people. If something is real, it doesn't need decoration." Kemi looked at him for a long moment. "That's a strange thing for a trader to say." "Is it?" She laughed softly, unsure why his simplicity felt so disarming. Meanwhile, across town, Fifi's world was collapsing in ways nobody outside her marriage could see. "Where is the money I gave you last week?" Bode's voice thundered through their sitting room. "I used it for the house, Bode. Food, fuel for the generator, You're lying to me." He stepped closer, and Fifi instinctively backed against the wall. "You think I don't know you've been sending money to your mother?" "I haven't sent her anything, I swear." The slap came before she finished her sentence. Fifi pressed her hand to her cheek, tears springing instantly to her eyes, but she said nothing. Saying anything only made it worse. This had become her life, quiet apologies for things she hadn't done, bruises hidden under long sleeves, smiles forced during family calls so nobody would ask questions. Then Bode lost his job. The logistics company he'd built his reputation on collapsed after a failed contract left them owing millions in unpaid debts. Almost overnight, the confident, charming man Vivian had once praised became someone consumed entirely by rage and shame. "Everyone is laughing at me," Bode muttered one evening, pacing their living room, a bottle in his hand. "My own wife's family probably laughing hardest." "Nobody is laughing, Bode. Please, just calm down. Don't tell me to calm down in my own house." The beating that followed left Fifi with a swollen eye and 2 cracked ribs. She packed a small bag that same night while Bode slept off his anger, and took a taxi straight to her mother's house. "Mama, please, open the door." Fifi's knock was frantic, desperate. "Mama, it's me." Vivian opened the door, and her expression shifted from confusion to horror as she took in her daughter's swollen face. "Fifi, what happened to you?" "Bode did this, Mama. He's been hitting me for months. Please, let me stay here, just for a while, until things calm down." Vivian's initial concern hardened almost immediately into something colder. "You want to leave your husband's house?" "Over what?" "A small disagreement." "Mama, look at my face. This is not a small disagreement." "Fifi, listen to me carefully." Vivian's voice grew firm, almost lecturing. "A woman does not run from her husband's house because of one bad night. What will people say? That my daughter couldn't manage her own marriage. He could have killed me, Mama. He was angry. Men get angry. You go back there, apologize for whatever you did to provoke him, and you fix your home. That is what a good wife does. I didn't provoke anything. Mama, please, I'm scared. You are not staying here, Fifi. Go back to your husband. Fifi stood in that doorway, swollen and broken, staring at the mother who had sacrificed everything, stolen everything, manipulated everyone, all supposedly for her benefit, now turning her away at the one moment she truly needed protection. Mama, please. Go home, Fifi. I will not have people saying my daughter ran from her marriage. The door closed. Fifi stood outside in the darkness for nearly an hour before finally calling a taxi back to the house she feared more than anything in the world. The beatings continued for another 3 months. Both's unemployment only deepened his rage, and Fifi became the easiest target for every frustration he carried. Neighbors sometimes heard the shouting, the crashing furniture, but nobody intervened. That was simply not something people did in that neighborhood. Then came the night that changed everything. Both had been drinking heavily, blaming Fifi for a business deal that fell through, though she had nothing to do with it. The argument escalated faster than usual, and this time, he didn't stop at a single slap. Fifi was found nearly 12 hours later by a neighbor who noticed the front door left open. She was unconscious, bleeding from a head wound, barely breathing when the ambulance finally arrived. Vivian received the call while preparing dinner, and the phone slipped from her hands the moment she heard the words, "critical condition." "Mama, you need to come to the hospital now," the caller said. "It's serious." She arrived to find her daughter connected to machines, her face barely recognizable beneath the bruises and bandages, doctors speaking in hushed, urgent tones about internal bleeding and possible surgery. "My baby," Vivian whispered, gripping Fifi's hand. "My baby, what did he do to you?" For the first time in years, something inside Vivian cracked open completely. All her careful scheming, all her manipulation, all her sacrifices meant to secure her daughter's happiness had led directly to this hospital bed, this fragile body fighting simply to survive the night. "Mom, she needs complete rest and a stable environment for recovery," the doctor explained later. Going back to a hostel home could be dangerous, even fatal, given her current condition. Vivian nodded numbly. "She'll stay with me. She's coming home with me." When Fifi finally regained consciousness 2 days later, weak and disoriented, she found her mother sitting beside her bed, eyes red from crying. "Mama. I'm here, my dear. I'm here. You're not sending me back?" Vivian's voice broke completely. "No, my darling. Never again. I should have listened to you that first night. I am so sorry. So sorry." Fifi turned her face away, too exhausted, too broken to respond to an apology that had come only after nearly losing her life. Kemi heard about the incident through a distant cousin weeks later, sitting quietly with Daniel at a small roadside restaurant. "My stepsister was almost killed by her husband," she said softly, staring at her plate. "The same husband my stepmother stole from me." Daniel reached across the table, taking her hand gently. "How do you feel about that?" Kemi thought carefully before answering. "I don't feel joy, if that's what you're asking. I just feel tired. Tired of watching this family destroy itself trying to win a competition nobody else was even playing." "You sound like someone ready to walk away from all of it." "I am," Kemi said, meeting his eyes. "I already have, mostly. I just didn't expect it to take almost losing a life for my stepmother to finally understand what she'd done." Daniel squeezed her hand gently, saying nothing, simply staying present in the quiet moment. Neither of them realized how soon Vivian's attention would shift entirely toward the man sitting across from Kemi, or how differently things would unfold once she discovered exactly who Daniel really was. Daniel's true identity revealed itself not through any grand announcement, but through a chance encounter Vivian never saw coming. She had gone to a business event with a friend, hoping to network for a small trading venture she wanted to start after Fifi's hospital bills drained what little savings the family had left. That evening, she watched in stunned silence as the keynote speaker walked onto the stage, introduced as the owner of one of the largest logistics and real estate conglomerates in the country. It was Daniel. That's the man Kemi has been seeing," Vivian whispered to her friend, gripping the program in her hand. "The trader from the market." "Trader?" Her friend laughed. "Vivian, that man is worth billions. He's been featured in Forbes Africa twice." Vivian sat frozen through the rest of the event, her mind racing through every dismissive comment she'd made about Daniel, every warning she'd given Kemi about wasting her time on a poor man. She called Kemi that same night. "Kemi, I need to talk to you about Daniel. There's nothing to discuss, Ma. I just want to apologize for how I treated him. I didn't know." "You didn't know he was rich," Kemi said flatly. "That's the only reason you're calling." Vivian had no response to that, because it was entirely true. Kemi and Daniel married 8 months later, in a small, private ceremony attended only by people who had genuinely supported Kemi through her years of struggle. Vivian was not invited. Neither was Fifi. 2 years into the marriage, Kemi gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl, and for the first time in her adult life, she felt something close to complete peace. "Look at them," she whispered to Daniel one night, watching their children sleep. "They'll never know what it feels like to go hungry while someone else eats. They'll never know a lot of things you went through," Daniel said quietly, wrapping his arm around her. "That's the whole point." Around the same time, Kemi's father fell seriously ill, a sudden stroke that left him partially paralyzed and confined to a hospital bed. Kemi visited despite everything, because whatever damage he'd caused, he was still her father, and some part of her needed closure. "Kemi," he said weakly one afternoon, his voice barely above a whisper. "Come closer." She sat beside his bed, saying nothing. "I need to say something before it's too late." His hand trembled as he reached for hers. "I failed you, Kemi. All those years, I chose comfort over truth. I let that woman destroy you piece by piece, and I called it peace in my house." "Papa, let me finish." His eyes filled with tears. "You deserved a father who protected you. Instead, you got a man who protected his own comfort. I am asking you, please, forgive me before I go." Kemi felt something tighten in her throat. "I forgive you, Papa." He passed away 3 weeks later, quietly, in his sleep. Vivian's world began unraveling rapidly after his death. Without her husband's pension and property rights properly secured in her name, distant relatives contested ownership of the house, eventually forcing her out entirely. Fifi, meanwhile, had escaped Bode after his violent outburst, but he refused to let her go easily. "You can't just leave, Fifi," Bode shouted, banging on Vivian's gate one afternoon, several months before Vivian lost the house. "You're my wife. Come back home now." "She's not going anywhere with you," Vivian said, standing firmly in the doorway despite her own fear. "Leave before I call the police. This is between me and my wife, old woman. Stay out of it." "I said leave." Bode eventually left that day, though he returned twice more with similar threats before finally disappearing from their lives entirely, likely onto his next target. With the house lost and nowhere else to turn, Vivian arrived at Kemi's gate one afternoon, thinner, older, stripped of the confidence she'd carried for decades. "Kemi, please, I need to talk to you." Kemi stood at her doorway, arms folded, saying nothing for a long moment. "I know I don't deserve anything from you," Vivian continued, her voice cracking. "But I have nowhere else to go. Please, just let me stay for a little while." "Why should I, Ma?" "Because I'm your mother. You were never my mother, Kemi said quietly. You made sure of that every single day since I was 16 years old. I've changed, Kemi. Losing your father, losing the house, almost losing Fifi, it's changed me. I'm asking for forgiveness. Forgiveness for what exactly? For the food you denied me. The admission you stole. The 3 men you destroyed my relationships with. Vivian's face crumpled. I've apologized, Kemi. What more do you want from me? I want you to understand that an apology means nothing if the person offering it hasn't actually changed. How dare you speak to me like this? Vivian's composure snapped instantly, years of suppressed rage boiling to the surface. I came here humbling myself, and this is how you treat me. You've always been too proud, Kemi. Too proud and too ungrateful for everything Everything you what, Ma? Kemi's voice remained steady, calm. Everything you took from me. I gave you a home. You gave me a house where I went hungry every single day. That's not the same thing. Vivian stood there, breathing heavily, and in that single outburst, Kemi saw exactly what she needed to see, confirmation that nothing had truly changed beneath the surface. You see, Ma. This is exactly why I can't take you back. The moment things don't go your way, that same bitterness comes right back out. You haven't changed. You've just run out of options. Kemi, please. I wish you well, truly. But you cannot stay here. Vivian left in tears, her shoulders slumped, defeated in a way Kemi had never witnessed before. Fifi came a week later, alone, without her mother. Kemi, can we talk? Kemi hesitated at the door but eventually stepped aside, allowing her in. I know I don't deserve your kindness, Fifi began, sitting carefully on the edge of a chair. Everything that happened to you, the admission, the men, all of it, I was part of that. I benefited from it, even when I didn't fully understand what Mama was doing. Did you know, Fifi? About Tobena, Chidi, Bod? Did you know what she was doing? Fifi's eyes filled with tears. I suspected sometimes. But I was young, and selfish, and I wanted the things she was giving me. I never stopped to think about what it was costing you. And now I understand exactly what it cost to lose everything, Kemi. My marriage, my health, almost my life. I'm not asking you to forget what happened. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry, truly sorry, for the part one played in your pain. Kemi studied her stepsister for a long moment, noting the exhaustion etched into her face, the humility that hadn't existed there before. I forgive you, Fifi. Fifi's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank you, Kemi. Thank you so much. But I need you to understand something clearly. Kemi's tone remained gentle but firm. Forgiving you doesn't mean opening my life back up to you. I have children now, a husband, a peace I fought hard to build. I can't risk that peace by pulling you and your mother back into it. I understand, Fifi said softly. I just needed you to know I was sorry. I know. And I appreciate that. I truly do. Fifi left that afternoon with something she hadn't expected, peace, not reconciliation, but genuine peace, knowing the apology had been heard and accepted, even if the relationship itself would never return to what it once was. Kemi stood on her porch long after Fifi's car disappeared down the road, watching her twins play in the garden, her husband's laughter drifting from somewhere inside the house. She thought about the girl who once cried silently on a kitchen floor, hungry and unseen. That girl had survived. More than survived, she had built an entire life beyond the reach of everyone who once tried to break her. Some wounds never fully close. But some people learn to build beautiful lives around them anyway. And that's Kemi's story. If you made it to the end, thank you, truly, for staying with me through this journey. I want to know, if you were in Kemi's position, would you have forgiven her stepmother, or would you have made the same choice she did? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and I love hearing how these stories make you feel. If this story touched you, please subscribe, turn on your notifications, and share it with someone who needs to hear that karma always finds its way back around. This is African Folktale by Susan, and I'll see you in the next story.